Hey there everybody, welcome back to Plat. Purplatypus is the name. We're doing another guide video today, or I guess a tier list more than a guide. We might get into a little bit of strategy, but basically I want to rank the bosses in one step from Eden, from the hardest to the easiest in my opinion. We're gonna break them down. I found a tier list on Tier Maker, so thank you to whoever made it here. It looks like it was made by Nasty Cactus. Go ahead and follow them if you want. 18 followers. So it's S through D. I'm gonna go with D as the easiest boss and S is the hardest, because I don't really understand how else I'd rank them. It's not like best boss, right? S is the best boss versus like that. You could go by design, but I'm gonna go with difficulty to beat in my personal opinion. Now, anything that I say is obviously 100% factual, and if you disagree, you're 100% wrong. You just haven't played enough and you're a noob. Hashtag get good, son. But also, obviously this list is more for fun than it is objective. I'm just gonna give, based on my, let's see, can we take a look? How much time do I have in Eden? Let's take a quick second here. Minimize this. Actually, can I pull this up? Pull in library. One step from Eden. My playtime is 53 hours. You can just barely see it right there. Okay, so I have 53 hours in Eden. So this is based on my 53 hours of gameplay. So let's just jump into it. And now we're gonna start off kind of I don't know. I actually don't know what the consensus is on bosses. So I actually am really interested if you guys leave comments, not just in that YouTube self-promote, please leave comments below kind of thing, but I'm actually interested to have some discussion, because I don't really hear people talk about what bosses are the hardest, and I'm not sure what the community says is the hardest. But starting off straight into D tier. Boom, Gunner. Gunner is a boss that is likely, I think, tied for the easiest boss, but probably slightly edges out being the actual easiest boss in the entire game. Just base level 1 to like level tier 1 to tier 4, not much changes. He gets like one attack, his ultimate, like he drops some bombs, but you kind of can control where the bombs go and they explode, but it's just like nothing he does is scary or that hard to dodge. I will say he can be particularly hard to get damage on sometimes because he does move a lot, but he doesn't even move as much. He still has predictable movements comparatively to the other easiest boss, I think, because he'll have like that beam where he'll shoot and get pushed back a row, shoot, push back a row. My voice changer's not on, is it? No. Okay. And so you'll know where he's gonna end up. So if you have some big damaging stuff, you can kind of plan it for there in advance. But yeah, just it's an easy boss. This is the boss that you basically want to fight last before your big final boss. So sorry, Gunner. I like you. I think you're a fun character to play. You're also a fun boss. You're my favorite boss to fight last. So there you go. Hazel. Hazel, I think, is kind of complicated. I think Hazel is relatively an easy boss. However, there are some times where you're doing a build that doesn't have anything that shoots straight forward. Like if you have a lot of things that are like thunder, where they like are lobbed, or they hit something 4 tiles away, or they hit like blizzard even, it only hits enemy tiles a bunch of times. If you don't have the ability to hit right in front of you, Hazel could be a real pain in the ass, because she will load up your side of the board with structures, and there's just no way for you to destroy them. She has the big press attack that's gonna come along, and you have to be able to destroy those boxes, and if you can't, you could just die. So in the wrong build, Hazel's really tough, but for the most part, I'm gonna put Hazel at a C. Still, it's a boss that does not kill you almost ever. And I'm gonna come in with the perspective that we're not fighting all bosses at tier 4. It's just gonna be kind of, I'm gonna try to take into account early game and late game, things like that. So it's not just like, all right, if you're fighting them all on as tier 4 on the first floor, which one's the hardest? This is more general overall, because you can add a lot of conditions, like which boss is hardest on the first floor versus like that. So I'm just gonna keep it a little basic. Oh my God, Reva. We're gonna skip you for a second, Reva. We're gonna come to Saffron here. Saffron is kind of in a very similar spot to Hazel, in my opinion, except Saffron, because Saffron has she creates that little mini doll of herself that acts just like a defense tower. So if you hit it, it'll shoot you for like 100 damage or something. If you have the wrong build, if you're using like a minigun, for example, a minigun build, or you're using a virus spell build, something that just hits a bunch and you can't bypass that turret, it can be very, very hard to do. Sometimes the thing is, she sometimes fucks herself, like she'll cast it and then she'll just attack it herself. But sometimes, like, if you like use a blizzard or something, and then you play it, and then your blizzard hits it like 3 times, like you could be taking a lot of damage. So I think Saffron is not that difficult of a boss, although she can do a surprisingly large amount of damage out of nowhere if you're not careful, because she moves a lot. So I think she's very similar to Hazel, just a little bit harder. I am going to put her up into the B tier. We're going to start sharing tiers, but I think these are both situationally hard, but I think Saffron is, we'll put her in the high C tier. We'll put low C tier, high C tier. We'll go hardest to easiest from left to right as well as down to up. How about that? All right, Slicey, this one is, man, all the bosses are actually feel like they're kind of complicated to me right now. Let's go. So the thing about Slicey, it's kind of hard, is like level 1 Slicey is probably one of the easiest bosses, I think. It's like a tier 1 is just, every attack is very predictable with big openings and stuff like that. When she gets her ultimate, when she gets, once she's at tier 4 though, she's insane. She might be one of the hardest bosses at tier 4 while being at one of the easiest bosses at tier 1. Because her moves are pretty predictable. She's a lot like Gunner. You kind of know what she's going to do, where she's going to be. Her attack ranges are all relatively small and you get time to dodge it. But at the highest level, it starts raining down spikes, so just random damage on random tiles. Her attack ranges get bigger. All of her attacks get faster, right? They're hitting insanely hard. And you just have to be able to move really fast, and it can be really hard to find time to fit in damage. So because she's kind of easy early, but hard later, I'm going to put her in A tier. This is a boss you always want to prioritize, I think, killing early. I think there's 4 bosses you want to prioritize killing early if you can, and ideally have her be one of the first 2 to 3 bosses. All right. So I didn't mention this earlier, but there's obviously going to be spoilers here. You can see these bosses, right? The alternate path bosses, or the, you know, the different ending bosses. So just keep that in mind. We'll I don't even know what the right order is to do with these. It doesn't matter. All right, let's go straight up Reva. All right, let's just start doing it in order. Reva, I think this will surprise no one. Early on, Reva is insanely hard, but by the late game, she is fuck you hard. Reva is an S tier hard boss at all points in the game. Now, early on, if you know you're experiencing the game, you're not gonna die because you just you're good enough at the game to get through the first floors, even if you're fighting a harder boss early on. But I'm telling you, between her summoning, between her ability to reflect things when you're not expecting it for huge amounts of damage, and between her insanely powerful diagonal attacks, that for me, it just breaks my brain. Like, there's only so many places you need to stand. Like, they're predictable patterns, but it breaks my brain. I always get hit, and she could do so much damage with such a variety of attacks. Reva is just insanely difficult at all aspects of the game, and don't even fight her later, because she's gonna destroy you, unless you're so overpowered, and then in which case it doesn't matter what boss you're fighting anyway, because they would have died. So Reva is potentially the hardest boss in the game. So let's skip the Shizo. Shizo is, I don't think, it might be Shizo. Sorry about pronunciations. Go ahead and correct me in the comments. I don't care. Slicey, I say wrong on purpose. Every other name, I'm not saying wrong on purpose. We're gonna put him in D tier. Another super easy boss. The only reason that this is gonna be slightly harder than Gunner, let's put him over here on the left. He's slightly harder to hit, with slightly less, because his moves are slightly less predictable, and even though his attacks are probably even easier to dodge most of the time, there's a few attacks that are a little bit harder to dodge if you're not, if you're thinking a little bit slow, or, like me, I'm just like, what do I have to do? So you have to like down left, and I always hit like down right, or, something like that. But also, he puts jams into your deck, which can mess up some decks, and it can really slow down and cause you to take extra damage in early runs, because like you have, you're spending your mana getting rid of these jams probably, or they're getting stuck in your deck. So he's still a really easy boss, but just slightly harder than Gunner, I would say. All right, so let's do it in this order here. I think that's cool. All right, Violet. Violet used to be an S tier boss for me, no doubt, because before you understand, you jump on her green squares to gain shield to avoid her big AoE attack that's undodgeable. You might think, you might not know what to do, because that attack does a lot of damage, and she gives you the shields to avoid it, so it's kind of like a dance. But then you kind of get to another stage where she has another attack where she starts summoning beams. She'll summon like subwoofers on your side of the field, which are annoying already. which is kind of like, if you don't have a good way to destroy it, they're really annoying because they'll be close to you. So you need to have something that kind of like a Hazel style spell to destroy those as well. But they have 100 health, so they're kind of annoying. But then she'll summon like these beams, boom, boom, and then she'll start shooting things at you also. But so it's really hard to avoid because you're like, oh, you're thinking, where do you have to go? But it's more of a beat thing. Once you realize it's more of a beat thing, I think it becomes much easier. It's more like you just like move at a certain speed in like a circle, and you'll just barely dodge everything she's doing, but it could still be really hard, and a slight mistiming could still get you hit. And I still get hit sometimes when I think I'm doing it perfect, but overall, I don't think it's an S tier boss anymore. I think is easier than Slicey, I would say overall. But this is definitely a boss that I prioritize fighting early. So I'm gonna do another guide video based on runs, just like how you do your runs. I think like what each thing does and why you should go, like what bosses are associated with which regions, so you can prioritize which regions to go to, and what hazards do things, and what you want to prioritize. Like that might be a fun guide video to do. I don't know. So we have nothing in B tier right now, but let me be the first to put down, boom, the wall in B tier. Now this is kind of a weird one, I think, because the wall is a really weird. This is probably the single weirdest boss to put on here, because these bosses have 1,000 HP to like 6,000 HP or something like that. The wall has like 20,000, 18,000, I don't even fucking remember, but it's an insane amount of HP. The thing is, so I think the wall is the hardest boss when you're new to the game. I mean, not the hardest, but it's one of the hardest bosses when you're new to the game. And as you get more skilled and you're not doing, let's say, a challenge run, if you're doing something like that's a really difficult challenge run, the wall could still be hard with all that HP. But if you know how to build a deck pretty well, like as you gain experience, the HP is not that bad because you can hit it with literally everything. The wall doesn't dodge. Anything that hits multiple times is going to hit the wall for insane amounts of damage. So the insane HP is actually not as insane as it looks because you're getting so much extra damage in by not missing anything ever, and being able to spam spells. So when you build a really strong synergistic deck, the wall just melts in seconds sometimes, depending on your deck and what you're going for. And the damage output of the wall is relatively low. It can get a little crazy. You can take damage. Like if you have a low damage deck, the wall could be like, don't do your best to avoid fighting the wall, right? Do a genocide or pacifist ending. But if you have a deck that's actually scaling damage pretty well, or it scales through multiple shuffles really well, the wall honestly is not that bad. It's my favorite boss to fight because it gives me more time and more craziness to see how crazy a deck can go, and you can just dish out insane amounts of damage. I think it's the most fun. It's kind of like a big giant training dummy, right? Like just to see how much damage output you can do. I'm gonna put it in the mid tier though, it'd be, because it's not really an easy boss. It's still like it's an end game boss, but it's not really that insane of a hard boss either, because by the time you get there, you're usually strong enough to just destroy it, unless you're newer in the game, in which case the wall could definitely be a hard point to get past, because I've lost to the wall a lot of times, but I haven't lost to the wall recently in quite a while. Terra is gonna go into the A tier as well, and we're gonna put her above, I think I'm gonna put her above Slicey. I think I'm gonna put her as the hardest A tier character. Now, the things is, Terra 1 is also pretty easy. Most of the bosses 1 are easy. Reva is actually one of the few bosses that's still hard at tier 1, which is why I guess she's up there. But Terra is it's diagonal attacks, man. They just get me. It's so hard for me to dodge her diagonal attacks, and it's like she'll start breaking your tiles and summoning these saws that spin around. And if you're not being aware of what tile she's breaking, where you're standing, like your positioning on the field at all times, you could easily find yourself into a trap where you're just taking an insane amount of damage in a very short amount of time. All while she teleports around quite a bit, so it can be hard to land hits. But once she stops, she does stop for a while. So if she stops in a good spot, you can get damage in. But a lot of times you'll be stuck in like these 4 squares because she'll have broken the other ones, or you have to move to dodge, and she'll be in a square you just can't hit. So it's a boss you want to fight early. I would say Reva and Terra are the two you want to kill earliest if possible. A side note though, if you find Granite relatively early in a run, you get plus 10 shields every time a tile is broken. That can make Terra a relatively simple boss because you're going to be getting hundreds of shields, hundreds and hundreds of extra HP in the form of shields just for that boss. So if you find an early Granite, you can prioritize one of these other harder bosses a bit earlier and save her for a bit later. So that's just kind of that's like an artifact built to help you fight this boss. Or if you're playing as Terra, obviously it's good as well. All right, so these are the 3 probably least fought bosses, in my opinion. Right, we have the Genocide Boss, the Pacifist Boss, and the Shopkeeper, which is an optional boss, which is needed for the true Genocide ending, but the Genocide and true Genocide are the same boss, it's just how it ends is differently. So, this might surprise you. I've fought this boss maybe 3 times, because I fight the wall a lot. So I fought this boss maybe 3 times. I think it's Terra. I don't actually remember all 3 of their... I remember Shopkeeper. I think this is Terrible and Seraph. I think so. I fought this like 3. I fought this like 3 or 4. So I don't have as much experience with these. But the thing is, I've won every time I've fought this boss, I've won. I'm gonna put them in B tier. I will put them harder than the wall. Maybe not. Thing is, this boss is such an interesting mechanic, where, you know, the whole board becomes available to use at a point, so you're not stuck to your side. You could move to the other side and your spells switch directions, so you can move around and stuff, and it's cool. It's really fun. I love this boss. I love the final bosses in this game for the most part, but I've never lost. This boss has been I would say trivially easy each time I fought him, but I think that's because you have a whole extra floor before you get to this boss. You go through Eden before you fight, and I think that just is kinda... You just have more time to get powerful, I suppose, more spell choices. Probably another shop in Eden, I would assume, but maybe not. I don't remember the layout of Eden that well. Yeah, I'm gonna put it in B tier because it is still a hard boss. Like, if you were to fight this boss at any point other than the end of the game, it would be insanely hard. She has like 6,000 HP, which is a lot, but I've never had difficulty with this boss, so I'm gonna put it easier. Now on the other side here, look at there's 2 left. I said Rev is one of the hardest bosses. I think this is either super controversial or not controversial at all. Some people will tell me I'm an idiot. Some people will tell me, duh, of course. I think that's kind of the opinion I'm gonna get here. Shopkeeper, hardest boss in the game. Wow, who would have thought it? So here's the thing. Some people say Shopkeeper is super easy. Once you learn the patterns, Shopkeeper is just super easy and all the attacks are simple to avoid and you could beat this boss almost 100% efficiency. And even in basically my counter argument to that is, even if that's true, that's still true with basically all the bosses. And the Shopkeeper is much harder to learn. So like, here's the thing. Reva might be harder to perfect, to take 0 damage on against versus the Shopkeeper if you learn the patterns. But the thing is, you could beat Reva just by being more powerful than the game, you know, or just by, you know, it's just an early boss. You can fight it early. The Shopkeeper, no matter when you fight, is always going to be super hard, is always going to need, it's just hard to get enough damage in to kill her, first of all, because she has a ridiculous amount of HP compared to everything you're fighting. She does an insane amount of damage. So you need really, really good play combined with really, really good, just like really good deck, good play, good knowledge of the boss, just like everything kind of has to line up. But once you have, you know, you're 1,000 hours into the game and you've mastered the Shopkeeper, maybe the Shopkeeper is a trivial boss. But I think for most aspects of the game, for most players, this boss is going to be the hardest boss, and is going to rely on cheese tactics to win most of the time. Now, again, some people might say, duh, of course this is the hardest boss, and other people are with the other argument, but we're gonna move on. Shopkeeper, hardest boss, 100% fact. If you don't think it is, oh, but on a side note, easiest character to win with. Talk about insanely overpowered. Hardest boss, easiest character, makes sense to me. Like, it's kind of like your reward for beating the Shopkeeper is unlocking the Shopkeeper, and they're like, hey, you beat the hardest boss, so here, have the easiest character, the most fun, in my opinion, the most fun character. Not because it's easiest, but it's because you have so much flexibility in where you can go with so many options early. That's a different video, but point is, really, really fun boss fight too. I need to do it a lot more. I need to do it. I need to make it trivial for me. So Terrible. Where does Terrible go? I'm gonna put Terrible as, it feels so wrong to put all the normal bosses on B tier, or all the final bosses on B tier, but I don't think any of them are that hard. I definitely think Terrible is the hardest of the bosses. You know what? Here's what we're gonna do. I'm actually gonna switch. I'm gonna put her in A tier. I think I'm gonna move Violet down to B tier. I think that's more appropriate. I think Violet's really hard B tier, but once you've learned, spend the time, not even that much time, she becomes quite a bit easier and very much less of a run killer, but it's still hard to perfect. But we're gonna put Terrible up here in the A tier. I think, not insanely hard, but consistently hard. And The attacks can be really, really hard to dodge when you're not used to it. Like she has this wave out, which is kind of simple. You just have, like, she just does a wave that goes out and out. You just have to step in there, but the timing can be pretty tricky to get. A lot of HP, a lot of crazy stuff going on. But honestly, like I said, I've only fought the boss. I think I've fought the boss 3 or 4 times and I've beaten it 2 or 3 times. I don't remember exactly, you know, in 50 hours, it's hard to remember exactly everything that I fought. But I've lost to this final boss probably, you know, the highest percentage of times that I faced him. Even though the wall, I've lost to more, I've played the game through the wall ending so many times and I beat it most of the time. Whereas Terrible is kind of like, I'm a little nervous. We have to do also the reason this boss is hard is because you're doing a pacifist ending. Your character's at the weakest spot, right? You're not getting the extra high roll artifacts and spells from killing bosses because you can't kill any bosses. You have to save them all. So yeah, I guess, you know what, that's it. I'm starting to ramble on at this point. I think this list is relatively justified. I think the top end and low end are gonna be everyone. I think the ones people are likely to disagree on are gonna be Saffron, the Wall. I think Saffron, the Wall, and maybe Seraph are the ones that people might disagree with. But anyway, let me know below what you truly think is the hardest boss in the game, what you think is the easiest boss in the game, where I'm wrong, why I'm wrong, and why I'm right. If you guys liked the video, dropping a like means a lot. I stream this game live on Twitch Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I usually start with a couple runs of Eden, then I'll move on to a different game. I'm currently playing some Monster Train right now, which is really, really fun. Love that game. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace out. I'll catch you next time.